I gave this plant the worst soil I could find, watered it only when I remembered, and let it bake in the sun and shiver in the cold. You are not going to believe the incredible harvest I still got from the world's most resilient garden green. If you've ever thought you have a black thumb or that you're just too busy for a garden, this plant is going to change your mind. This isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving on a level of neglect that would kill almost anything else. This was the ultimate test, and honestly, the results are unbelievable.
Before we dive deep, join our community of curious minds. Subscribe to The Career Botanist for the hidden science of nature. Let's begin. To the naked eye, it is just nature, but look closer. It is engineering, it is economics, it is survival. Welcome to the hidden side of biology. This is modern botany.
Let's be real for a second. Gardening can be hard. We see those perfect gardens online and think, I can do that. But then life hits. We get busy, we forget to water, that pricey bag of compost is still sitting by the garage, and our soil, well, it's more like construction debris than fertile ground. I've been there. I think we all have. We've all watched a promising plant just give up because we couldn't give it the constant, perfect attention it demanded. It's discouraging. It makes you feel like you just weren't born with a green thumb. And that's a myth I really want to shatter today. So I designed an experiment, a true trial by fire, or more accurately, a trial by terrible soil, inconsistent watering, and crazy temperature swings. The goal? Find a vegetable that doesn't just put up with a little forgetfulness, but one that could genuinely produce under conditions of near total neglect. A plant for the busy, the forgetful, the gardener with bad soil. Anyone who wants a harvest without a full-time job. To do this, I had to create the absolute worst-case scenario. First, the spot. I didn't use my nice, fluffy raised beds. Nope. I picked that forgotten corner of the yard. You know the one. It's where builders dumped leftover fill dirt. It's compacted, rocky, clay-heavy, and has probably never seen a nutrient in its life. Calling it soil is generous. Next up, the watering schedule, or really the lack of one. I made a deal with myself. I would only water this plant when it looked so pathetic my conscience couldn't take it anymore. No timers, no weekly soaks, just long, dry spells where the ground would crack, followed by a frantic dousing with the hose. Finally, the environment. This spot gets blasted by the sun, but it's also in a weird wind tunnel. Our weather has been all over the place, scorching weeks that would make other greens bolt, followed by unseasonably cold nights. There would be no babying, no row covers for surprise cold snaps, no shade cloth during a heat wave. This plant was on its own. The stage was set. I had created a vegetable garden of horrors, a place where only the toughest plant in the world could survive. The question was, could anything actually grow here? So what plant did I choose for this botanical boot camp? What vegetable did I bet on to withstand this whole ordeal? It's one you've probably seen at the farmer's market, with its vibrant, colorful stems. It's a plant your grandmother might have grown. It's called Swiss chard. Now, chard isn't some trendy new superfood. It's an old-world vegetable, a member of the beet family that's been cultivated for centuries for a very good reason. It has a quiet legacy of being incredibly tough. It's famous as a cut-and-come-again crop, but its resilience goes way beyond that. I chose a rainbow variety because I'd heard the whispers. Gardeners would say things like, "Oh, the chard, it just grows. I don't do much to it." I'd read forum posts telling stories of people forgetting they'd even planted it, only to find it thriving months later. There were tales of it surviving frosts that wiped out everything else. It often gets overlooked for its more famous cousins, spinach and kale, but unlike spinach, it's incredibly resistant to bolting. That's when a plant gives up on leaves and makes seeds when it gets hot. And unlike some fussier kales, it doesn't seem to demand perfect soil. I had to see if the legends were true. Was this unassuming vegetable the lazy gardener's gold mine? I bought a single packet of seeds for a few bucks and decided to find out. I wasn't just planting a vegetable. I was planting a hypothesis that a beautiful garden doesn't always have to come from endless work. Sometimes it's just about choosing the right plant, and I had a hunch Swiss chard was the one. The experiment began in the spring. I scratched a shallow trench into that awful soil, dropped the seeds in, covered them up, and gave them a quick watering. And then, the neglect began. For the first couple of weeks, I admit, I peaked. I was skeptical. But then, little splashes of green and red started pushing through the compacted dirt. The chard was sprouting. As the seedlings grew, I did the bare minimum, thinning them out just enough so they weren't right on top of each other. Then came the first real test, 2 weeks with no rain, where I genuinely forgot about that corner of the yard. The sun beat down and the ground turned to dust. I walked by one afternoon and my heart just sank. The little plants were lying flat against the soil, looking completely defeated. Well, I thought, that was a short experiment. I felt a pang of guilt and gave them a deep, long drink of water, more out of pity than anything else. The next morning I went out expecting to pull up tiny, crispy plant corpses, but what I saw was astonishing. They were standing straight up again, not just surviving but looking vibrant, their leaves reaching for the sun as if yesterday's near-death experience never happened. This was the first sign that this plant was something special. As spring turned into summer, the neglect continued. We had heat waves that would send lettuce and spinach into a bolting frenzy. The chard didn't seem to care. Its leaves got bigger and the stems thickened, their colors deepening into brilliant reds, yellows, and pinks. My watering remained chaotic. The plants would wilt dramatically, and then after a storm or another guilt watering, they'd spring right back to life. Weeds moved in and I didn't pull them all. Part of the experiment was to see how the chard competed, and it held its own, its broad leaves eventually shading out the competition. Then the pests arrived. I saw holes in the leaves, probably from slugs or beetles. I did nothing. No sprays, no traps, and while some leaves had cosmetic damage, the plant grew so vigorously it just seemed to outpace the pests. For every leaf that got a hole chewed in it, 3 more would appear. By late summer, this was no longer a sad patch of dirt. It was a lush, vibrant jungle. The plants were huge, some 2 feet tall, with massive leaves. It was thriving. In terrible soil, with barely any water, in the blazing heat. It was defying every gardening rule. And the best part was yet to come. As summer started to fade, the chard patch was a spectacle. But the true test of any vegetable isn't survival, it's the harvest. What's the point of a tough plant if it doesn't give you anything to eat? I went out with a basket to snip a few of the larger outer leaves, which is how you harvest chard to keep it producing. I started cutting, and then I took a few more. And more. My basket was overflowing in minutes. I went back for a bigger one. I filled that one too. The sheer volume of food was staggering. These weren't small, bitter leaves. They were huge, tender, and glossy. The stems were thick and crisp. I had harvested a mountain of food from a patch of ground I had actively abused for months. But here's the most incredible part. A week later, I could barely tell I'd harvested anything. The plants had already pushed out a whole new flush of growth. They responded to the heavy cutting by growing back with even more energy. This went on all fall. Every week, another huge bunch of chard. We sautéed it with garlic, chopped it into soups, and used the giant leaves as wraps. The supply felt endless. The more we harvested, the more it grew. And then the first frosts arrived. For many greens, that's the end, but for chard, it's a game changer. Not only did the plants survive, but the flavor actually got better. The cold seemed to knock out any hint of bitterness, making the leaves sweeter and more tender. The chard was one of the last things standing in the garden, a defiant splash of color as everything else turned brown. This wasn't just thriving on neglect, this was rewarding neglect with an almost comical level of abundance. So how does Swiss chard pull this off? It's not magic, it's just brilliant plant biology. First, it's temperature toughness. Chard handles summer heat that makes other greens turn bitter and bolt. But its real superpower is cold tolerance. It can handle frosts down into the mid-20s Fahrenheit, or around -4 to -6 Celsius. In many milder climates, you can even get it to survive the winter and grow again in spring, especially if you give it a thick 4-inch layer of straw or leaf mulch to insulate its roots. That sweetening of flavor after a frost is real. It's a biological response to the cold. Next is its secret weapon against bad soil and drought, its root system. Unlike its cousin, the beet, it doesn't form a big, swollen root to eat, but it does develop a deep and substantial root system. This allows it to anchor itself and, more importantly, to mine for moisture and nutrients far below the surface where other plants can't reach. This is why it can bounce back from those dry spells. While it's impressively drought-tolerant once established, you'll get the best-tasting leaves with consistent watering. And while it tolerates poor soil, it performs even better with some compost. Its talent is its ability to produce even when conditions aren't perfect. The cut-and-come-again harvesting is also key. When you cut the outer leaves, you don't damage the plant's central growing point, or crown. Cutting actually stimulates the plant to produce more, creating a harvest cycle that can last for months. Finally, it's surprisingly adaptable to different light conditions. While it loves full sun, it's one of the more shade-tolerant greens you can grow. You can tuck it into spots where sun-hungry plants like tomatoes wouldn't be happy. These traits combine to make the ultimate low-maintenance, high-reward vegetable. It's not that it doesn't appreciate good care, it's that it's uniquely equipped to produce without it. So, what's the verdict? Swiss chard didn't just pass the test, it shattered all expectations. It took the worst I could throw at it and gave back beauty, abundance, and delicious food for months. This proved to me that the black thumb is a myth. It's not about having some magic touch, it's about working smarter, not harder. It's about choosing plants that fit your life and your yard, instead of trying to force delicate plants to survive where they're not meant to. If you've ever been discouraged by gardening, if you feel like you don't have the time, the energy, or the perfect yard, I dare you to try Swiss chard. For the cost of a seed packet, you can plant it in that spot you thought was useless, water it when you remember, and watch what happens. Successful gardening is for everyone. It's not about perfection, it's about resilience. And there is no better teacher of resilience than this incredible, beautiful, and ridiculously forgiving vegetable. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments if you've grown Swiss chard, or if there's another thrives on neglect plant that you swear by. I love learning from all of you. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe. We're just getting started on making gardening accessible and fun for everyone. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening.